We answer questions about technology, explain the way they should work, and why they don't sometimes. And now here's your host, John C. Morley. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome once again back to the J Moore Tech Talk Show, where you get to learn all about technology and we get to talk to some people from around the world about their views and about some of the things that they're involved in regards to technology, policies, procedures, and even people sometimes. And we talk to some great authors. And it's great to have you, Marcus Hart, as my co-host. It's nice to see you again tonight.
Oh, it's just a pleasure to be back with you and just join this great platform here with you, my friend.
Yeah, so we have a great show here tonight. We have an amazing scientist who's going to be coming on a little later in the show, Dr. Farshid Pavlani. Hopefully, I'm now pronouncing his name correctly. Really excited to talk to him. I had a pre-talk with him, so I'm really interested to talk to him about sustainability. But, you know, Marcus, we're starting to open up the world a little bit with COVID, and vaccines are starting to come around and things like that. But I think the bottom line is that people are still looking for hope. You know, they're looking for hope everywhere. And I don't blame people looking for hope. But there's one gentleman who really is bringing some hope. A Lakewood resident develops an application, Marcus, that coordinates organ transplant transportation.
Oh, this is nice. Boy, talk about something that is needed right now in the world where people feel like they need these things delivered with urgency. He's filling in the gap here.
There's a veteran emergency and flight pandemic, Sim Shane, founder and CEO of Paraflight EMS and aviation and organ flights, keeps his eye on the clock when he and his crew are making an organ transplant flight. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. I mean, you know, they only have so many hours and minutes to get it there, or the organ may not be usable when it gets to the donor.
That's terrible. Just even thinking about that. Who even would have knew that? I didn't even know that.
Yeah, this comes to us from a connection that I have in New Jersey, learning about this. And so he created a software application that's available right now on the iPhone and the Android platform. And it allows dispatchers to collect critical information, basically. And the app is aimed at interested physicians, pilots, ambulance drivers, nurses, and others who are involved. But via the app, and I quote, "We give the aircraft operators the ability to sign up and their schedulers, and dispatch will commit to the flights. In addition, we arrange for ground transports as well for the transplant teams to the airports and to the transplant centers." That is just remarkable, Marcus. I think that is really an amazing app. The way that they're able to do this and coordinate with commercial flights. And it's very critical to be able to get these things somewhere, not only safely, but within a certain, sometimes narrow time frame.
This is going to lessen the hassle with this and save so many lives. I'm just thinking about the lives that's going to be saved from this.
Yeah, so you're going to be able to download this application, this transplant application. There isn't too many others like this on there. And, you know, whether you're talking about heart and lungs, did you know they only last up to 6 hours?
That's not long.
No, and kidneys last up to 36 hours. So they have a little more time. And a liver has 15 hours. But the heart and lungs, they really got to, you know, double time it. Yeah. And in a country where they have, I think, about 113,000 people that are now on a waiting list for transplants, dozens of organs are being discarded because they can't reach their destination in a condition that's still alive and able to be used for the transplant.
Wow. That is just mind-blowing. And just to think that we're in 2021 and we thought we would have had this figured out, and now this comes along. This is great news.
It's a logistical problem. You know, a lot of people, whether it's medical or other type of shipping, we don't really think about the value of logistics. But when it comes to somebody's life, It's a lot different than whether a package is just going to get there because we're anxious.
Mm-hmm.
This basically has someone's life on the line, and it's all in the mercy of somebody being able to drive a plane safely or get ground transportation to and from, navigating traffic lights. Yes, they're in ambulances, but still they got to get on a plane. They got to go through an airport. There's just a lot of red tape, Marcus, they got to go through.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just a matter of just a signature that needs to be signed off on something, or just knowing who's the proper channel to follow through, to get these things moved in the right direction, so it doesn't go elsewhere, or so it doesn't have these delays. Having been a logistic guy myself in the military,
Oh, wow.
I saw this firsthand, and I know what this looks like, when you have backup orders and those sort of things. But like you said, we're dealing with lives here, and these things got to be pushed along a lot more faster.
I have been very privileged being a first responder and, learning about triage and also dealing with people. And one thing that I never knew when I got started several years ago was when you hear somebody complaining, our human nature would say to take care of them first, right?
Right.
But actually, that's not the people we should be taking care of. It's the people that can't complain, that can't speak, that can't yell, that can't cry, because they're in more dire need of emergency attention.
Mm-hmm.
So when you triage people, you have to block out what sometimes the emotions want to do and do what's best for saving the most amount of people in the little amount of time.
That's true. I like that. I think what you just said there, speaks huge volumes. And boy, you dropped some nuggets tonight for the audience to really take into heavy consideration here.
And they're all calorie free, by the way. So you can have as many of these nuggets as you'd like. There's no golden arches here, yeah. And they're not fried, any of these nuggets.
Yeah. No fats here. So that's great. So good.
But, there's scientists now that have developed a message display fabric. This is pretty cool. So it's a wearable, foldable, washable fabric that can actually display flashing messages or an image. So you're probably saying to yourself, well, gee, it's only a scarf. What good is that going to do? But again, it's wearable, it's foldable, and it's washable. And it's a fully functioning display. It can flash messages or images and even be used with a keyboard. This particular fabric is described actually to be able to help teams. And a gentleman by the name of Hushang Peng, a professor in the Department of Macromolecular Engineering at Shanghai's Fudan University, has been working on this. And he believes it could revolutionize communication. And I quote, help individuals with voice, speech, or language difficulties to express themselves to others.
That's interesting. Yeah, this multi-function that it has here, this can go a long way.
It can say hi to someone. It can have your name on there. It can have an ID number.
Yeah.
It can show a number. Maybe it can be used to do sign language, like to show symbols.
Yeah. And I can see this being used, again in the military too, when you're in locations where you have to be silent and secluded, and you don't want the enemy to hear you. So this can definitely be great, in that respects too. But yeah, for the original intent, I love it.
And the thing that's also very interesting is that wearable electronics is really advancing in our world for being able to have this on our body and use it. And there was another study published not too long ago that described a wearable microgrid powered by the sweat of the wearer. And this is really going to change things. And although, they're often fragile and prone to damage, as we've seen in the past, they're saying that now these new devices are going to be a lot more resilient. You can wrap them, you can tie them, and they're still going to function. I could see this being great. Maybe there's an emergency and you need to flash red to someone as a danger or maybe a caution sign. I see a lot of value in this, Marcus.
That is great. I'm just kind of curious behind the power that's driving this thing. And I think some of the audience might be curious too. So, just based on the article, what type of power are we talking about here that that's giving this thing to work the way it works?
Well, they're saying that it's a microgrid by the sweat of the wearer. So this is going to be able to operate based on your body. Now, they do have ones that it says they can have batteries for. LCD and LED don't really take up, much power. But I think this is going to be a new technology because you have to remember something. It's flat.
Right.
And they're saying that you can wash it. Now, this is interesting because when they say you can wash it, I just wonder, does that mean we have to take out the electronics or are the electronics washable? Because they're saying it's a fabric.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. So that is, if it's able to be washed, and you still can have the power inside of it, that's definitely revolutionary in itself. So I'm just kind of excited about what we're doing here in terms of technology.
Yeah, I'd like to see what one of these actually looks like. I don't think they're in the store,
No,
actually yet.
doesn't
But
sound like you can get this on Amazon.
I don't think you're going to find it there tomorrow,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Right.
But this is going to be something we'll have to keep our eyes on. I mean, there's a lot happening. And I think this would have been great during COVID for people to have masks that actually had phrases on them. I know I saw some of those,
Yeah.
But they were very bulky.
Yeah. So you got a good point there because it is kind of hard to hear people through masks nowadays. So just to have one of these for a mask in place, over your face, this would be great. And people would not have a need to talk anymore.
And they were actually doing some tests. There were some beta masks, but they haven't really made it to mass production, where people could talk by using the mask. And when they talked, it would actually have a speaker in the actual mask. So if you were talking low, it could actually project, because if you're wearing a mask, it's hard to hear yourself. So they had like a space so you could talk, and the voice system could actually transmit outside of a speaker that's on the mask.
I would really love one of those because I'm a soft-spoken person when you catch me outside of the mic. So I would love to have one of those if they bring those into existence. So sign me up.
Well, there's a lot of great, technologies, I think, coming up the pipe. And another one you might have heard before is QR, or a QR code. They call it a quick response code. And I quote, it's a type of matrix barcode or two-dimensional barcode first designed in 1994 for the automotive industry. And guess where? In Japan. A barcode is a machine-readable optical label that contains information about the item to which it is attached. Now, you've seen these a lot on cell phone packages.
Yeah.
A QR code is something simple that you scan with your phone, and then it usually brings you to a website or launches an app or something of that nature. But let's take another perspective, Marcus. Imagine for a moment QR codes that are linking to people's health passports. Well, China's tech arsenal has this already. Daily life in China follows a rhythm of a digital check-in with the QR code at the office, malls, and transport hubs.
Yeah, this is definitely in itself. I can see how it would help to slow down COVID in such a congested area that is China. But the quote unquote health passport, this kind of scares me at the same time.
Absolutely, Marcus. It gets into what I call privacy.
Yeah.
And the way it works in China is you basically scan a QR code and you have to get a green pass in the health app.
Mm-hmm.
And it's common practice for them to be used at offices, restaurants, shopping malls, sports centers, and transport stations. Now, in the United States right now, and I'm speculating, but just to be able to get on a plane, and I had mentioned this a while back, I was always getting tests before I flew on the plane for my own better health and because I'm a responder.
Mm-hmm.
Other people were not doing that.
Right.
Now, United has mentioned that you have to either have a vaccination card showing that you're vaccinated, or you have to have your results from your test showing that you're negative.
Wow. This is really starting to pry into privacy a lot. It's just like asking somebody, how many partners have you slept with in the past couple of months, and did you catch anything? So like this, to me, it's really borderline, because if they can ask you that and get away with it, it really leaves the door open for other things that they can ask you.
Yeah, it's not the asking that I have the problem with. It's who they're sharing the information with. Because
Yeah,
there might be some validity to ask me something for a medical app. However, who does have access to that and who doesn't have access to that?
exactly.
And are they using that to exploit us and possibly get millions of dollars or larger because now they have a captive audience since they know that I'm positive or some other condition about me? And I think that's just unfair.
Yeah, it's very unfair, because once you bombarded with all of these different phone calls and different then your email's already bulky enough, and now you're getting bombarded with more emails, and you're wondering, well, how do these people get a hold of my social security number and all this different stuff, and it, it gets pretty troubling at that point.
Your information is all over, as we know.
Yeah.
And not to get into this too deeply, but there was a lady, this was a show, and it was based on a true story where she actually had lost her job and she actually stripped a man that was doing very well financially of his identity.
Mm.
She called him up, warning him about a security risk, saying that, you don't want to lose your identity right now. So we need to get you signed up with this program right away. And she asked him for his social security number and his credit card number. But it gets better. She then has the information, and now she can print credit cards on demand in his name. It took him months before he was able to get his identity back. And when he finally met her, she said, "I'm sorry, but it's nothing to do with you. You're just another number. And I do this all the time."
Wow.
That's something to chew on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
All right. On a little lighter note, they're trying to get, I guess, a little bit more green, no pun intended, apartments made from waste glass and textiles are using green ceramics. The kitchen splashbacks, the front, the islands of the kitchens. And they're starting to put together apartments using waste materials. And they're saying this can revolutionize the home construction industry. And it's going to make a change and help people save money because it's going to now have a green tag, unquote, unquote, to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you want things green? I don't know if I want my kitchen green.
No, people still want options. But I can see the doing it for just the the greater good of mankind. But at the end of the day, this we still want options, and we still want like our own colors and like our own tastes.
I'll give you an
Uh,
example. You're building a cafeteria for a school, right?
mhm.
And it's going to cost you $7 million. Well, by us doing it green, we might save 500,000, hypothetically. So that might be a reason, because again,
Yeah,
they're only in the cafeteria for a short period of time. Maybe some labs, maybe pharmaceutical companies might use it to construct the labs of their islands, possibly.
yeah. This type of stuff makes sense. But when it comes to somewhere where you're going to be dwelling at for a while, you kind of want to make your home, and if you're not happy with green, you may not want it.
Now, we were touching on a topic before called wearable microgrid, but if you noticed, I was deliberately hedging that topic. And
Mhm.
the reason is because it was coming up later in the show. So, a wearable microgrid. Nano engineers at a university in California have developed a wearable microgrid that harvests and stores energy from the human body to power small electronics, Internet of Things devices that you may have on your person at any time. All the parts are flexible, washable, and can be screen printed onto clothing.
Mm.
So this is going to change things a lot. The wearable microgrid is built from a combination of flexible electronic parts, and they were developed by the Nanobioelectronics team of the UC San Diego Nano Engineering Department by Professor Joseph Wong. Say that a million times fast. And he is the director of the Center for the Wearable Sensors at the UC San Diego and corresponding author on the current study. Each part is screen printed onto a shirt and placed in a way that optimizes the amount of energy collected. They call them biofuel cells, and they harvest energy from the sweat that are located inside the shirt at the chest.
Hmm.
So that device we were talking about before could use this technology to not use any type of outside power.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because this wearable microgrid uses energy from human sweat and movement to power an LCD. So not only is it sweat, but it's also movement. And when you combine both of these together, you get something interesting. And they do make up for each other's shortcomings. Now, Yin said, and I quote, "They're complementary and synergistic to enable fast startup and continuous power. The system boots 2 times faster than having just biofuel cells alone, and it lasts 3 times longer than a triboelectric generator alone." So where we're trying to go with this is saying that sustainability is one thing, but now being able to go all the way down and harness it into something else, I think that's going to make things amazing.
Yeah, it really is. This is kind of what people were looking forward to, and something that we kind of saw in sci-fi movies, and now here it is. It even has the look. Everybody's going to walk around looking like a Power Ranger.
Triboelectric generators basically give off power right away as soon as the user starts moving and before breaking a sweat. And then once the user starts to sweat, then what we call the biofuels start to provide even more power. So if the user stops moving, they still have a way to gain power. That's pretty ingenious, if you ask me.
It is. This is a pretty cool invention here we got here. So this is great.
The question is, how much have they tested it, Marcus? That's what I want to know. Are there any side effects with it? I mean, we have to think about these things.
Yeah. Uh, it makes you think about Iron Man. So
Yes, exactly. Yes.
yeah, Iron Man had an issue. So uh yeah, that'd be a good, real good
I don't
question.
think somebody that has a pacemaker would want to wear this. So obviously,
No.
you wouldn't want
Uh,
to wear it. Also, I bet it would cause some a little bit of fun or more than a real party at the airport going
yeah.
through security with one of these devices. What the heck is this? Oh, this is my biofuel suit to power my laptop while I'm on the plane. Okay, sir, can you take that off? Huh? Well, it's under my shirt. Oh, okay. Would you like a private screening? We laugh, but there's coming a time when it's becoming hard to separate what's legitimate technology and what's technology that could possibly become a weapon.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Now, many of us are attending conferences. I'm sure you attended Zooms and other events online. I think just a few weeks ago, you were attending one of your children's teachers' conferences.
Yeah. With another one coming up soon.
Another one coming up soon. And maybe it's just you and another person, or maybe it's just you. Well, now, if you're in a group or a meeting, imagine being able to have a robot decide who to interact with based on the one that's not interacting with them or paying attention. So, how do you do that? Well, that's a great question. The robot keeps track of your stare glance.
Hmm.
And when it sees that it's not balanced, it engages you.
Hmm.
I'm pretty impressed with that, Marcus.
Yeah, I am too. This is it's real key, for a connection. I think oftentimes when you have someone who's a keynote speaker, someone who is presenting, or perhaps in this case, maybe even a teacher, they may not be as good as what the robot is trained to do to engage the audience and encourage the participation.
I think with the robot, it's going to learn a certain set of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And a human could become tired if they were teaching for X hours. A robot would be able to perform that task for many hours before needing a recharge.
Yeah.
And it would do it a lot more efficiently. That's going to be a very interesting thing. And I want to make a quote from them. If someone is not inclined to participate for some reason, we showed that gaze is able to overcome the difference and help everyone to participate. That's pretty amazing, Marcus.
It is. It's the power of when to utilize it and how to utilize it, which is what these robots are going to be ultimately trained to do. And boy, I feel sorry for some teachers that may be out of some jobs if the robots are doing better than them. So
I think all this comes back to one main point.
mm-hmm.
And that is the fact that technology is reshaping our lives.
Yeah, totally.
We've seen that, there's different types of technology products that people can wear, from IoT to now having your own biocell that can be right on your body. But when they actually take these things like movement and sweat, they're storing them into some type of battery, because those aren't directly energy,
Right.
but they're using this special generator to be able to do that. So I think that's pretty neat. Speaking about, neat things and, really having technology that is sustainable and understanding our world, my next guest, who I'm very pleased to have join us, his name is Dr. Farshed Pavlani. And he is a very interesting person. We're going to get to talk to him. He actually talks a lot about sustainability and sustainable solutions for industry profit and longevity. So what he does in a nutshell is he helps companies figure out what they need to do to take the waste of that product and turn it into something else or create less waste and allow us to use that to preserve our environment. I think that's pretty neat. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Farshed Pavlani from who's gone to Tokahu University, and he's joining us from around the world. I'm very pleased to have him with us tonight to talk to us about sustainability, our business, and our environment, and of course, the planet that we're on. Well, hello, everyone. It's John C. Morley with the J. Moore Tech Talk Show, and I am so pleased today to have Dr. Farshid with us on our show. Thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, John, for having me on your show. Thank you.
It is our pleasure. And you have quite a background, I have to say. You know, I want to ask you one question. How did you get into this field of sustainability, energy, and waste? I mean, what got you so passionate, to want to do this?
So my background and my study was in the material science and engineering. And I always was obsessed about the material. And whenever I see a product, I want to know that what material it's made of. But then slowly I realized that when we call a material as a waste or product as a waste, that product is reached to its end of the life. But the material itself is perfectly good material, and we can use it again and again. So that's why I become obsessed about the wastes and obsessed about how we can these, which we call it as a waste, we can bring it back to the economy. We can reuse it and produce a product out of it and keep it in the economy more and more. And that's why I'm now very passionate about this material.
So when you talk about this, it's really fascinating. What is it for our viewers here tonight, if we want to just break this down for them in just simple terms? What's an example of this type of chain or something that most of our viewers could probably relate to?
Mm-hmm. So imagine a textile. For example, we have these clothing and we wear them. But when that, for example, come out of the fashion or is basically wear and tear, we call it as a waste. And we put it into the bin and it's go to the waste. But when you look at it closely, the fibers into these textiles are still very good fibers. It's a still good quality material that can be reused again. But because its function as a textile, its function as a clothing has been finished, we call it waste. But if you look at that and we see that how we can reuse those fibers in other products or in other applications, for example, we can use them into the producing acoustic material for building. So in that case, we don't call them the waste. We can call them as a resource. The function as the clothing has been finished, but we can use them to produce another product in another application. So.
Okay, so basically, if I want to simplify this for everyone, it's taking a product, if we would say that whether we have garbage or whether we might have a TV set, and there's things in that TV set, or let's take a hard drive. Everybody knows what a hard drive is, digital or the mechanical ones. You actually take apart the hard drive and you take apart the components so that you can reuse those components to different things like energy, etc. Is that the type
yes,
of line?
That's one aspect of it. For example, let's continue on the hard drive. So we have the hard drive. The hard drive has some metallic components, some polymer inside, and some of them is mixed together. If we just want to separate one by one from that, it's actually become a little bit difficult. Because, for example, some of them you can easily separate them, but some of them is so entangled together and you cannot separate them individually. And it took a lot of, for example, money, energy to separate them individually. And that's a barrier at this moment. And that's why the people are not recycle them. And it's more cost effective to send them to the landfill. But if now we change our mind, we look at them as a whole, as a component. For example, if you have the different metallic material and polymer together, and we see that how we can reform them to a new material, then you can find a cost-effective process which is economically viable, but at the same time you can use the material into that to produce a product. For example, you can produce new alloy for other application. You don't need to necessarily use the hard drive, separate them, and again produce a hard drive. But you can use the hard drive and produce, for example, copper-based alloy, or you can produce another component which is useful. So that's the whole idea of the reforming. So we can recycle when we can, but if, for example, we reach the limitation, then we can use the reforming, or we can use other techniques to, again, keep these material into the economy.
Is there a standard? I know you've obviously engineered a lot in this, but is there a certain process, like in manufacturing, there's like a 3.0, a 4.0. Is there a standard that was written for this that companies have to follow or have to administer, or is that still being developed right now?
So still it's in the development. So there is, unfortunately, there is no standard on that. And also not only on the procedure to recycle them or reform them, but also there is no standard on the product that made out of recycled material. So that's a limitation, and that's a barrier for the companies to reuse the material or recycle them at this moment.
When I think about recycling and sustainability, one of the big ones that comes to my mind are two things: solar panels and also car washes. People say, gee, you're crazy. Car washes waste a lot of water, don't they? And solar panels seem like they have a certain amount of life, but then they're thrown away. Also light bulbs. So can you talk to us a little bit about what would be the process of making sure that's correct? Because I'm sure a lot of these are going to be found in landfills very soon.
Yes, yes. So the solar panel is very challenging at this moment. Why? The technology is very good. Producing the electricity, renewable energy is perfectly fine, is very good. But the way they design these solar panels, unfortunately, is not recyclable. They are so embedded together and that there is no solution to separate. And that's why we call them as emerging challenges. In next 5 to 6 years, the number of these solar panels that coming as a waste and going to the landfill is increasing drastically. And there is a huge amount of the good material in that. For example, in 100 kilogram of the in 1,000 kilogram of the solar panels, we have around 600 kilograms of the very good glass. We have around 180 kilogram of the aluminum, and we have 0.6 kilogram of silver in them. And all of them is going to the landfill. So that's a barrier. Normally, when we design a product and we want to bring a product, we don't think about their end of the life. And we design them just the best way that at that moment we can to have the performance. But if we think also about their end of the life, then we can design them better. So that's an emerging challenge for solar panels. And that's why now one of the work that we are doing and focusing on is to find a way that we can take these very good material in the solar panels, bring them back into the economy.
And I bet that's probably very expensive right now, because not everybody's doing that, right? It's something that's emerging. I mean, it will become more cost effective. How about as far as like car washes and water and things like that? Is there a sustainability to that or not really? Because I know they just have a lot of waste there. Some of them don't recycle the water. Is there anything that can be done with water or not really?
Yeah, there is a lot of good in the case of the water. There is a lot of good water treatment processes that is already available. So they can basically capture their water, they can filter them, they can process them and reuse them in their same process. The problem is because the cost of installation of that is higher than the cost of the water they use for in the system. So that's a barrier. They don't want to put the investment up front and then get the benefit later. So
So it's
that's
almost like
also
the government. The
yes.
government needs to put some type of I guess, a rebate or an incentive to get people to want to do these things. Do you see things like that coming in the future, or not for a while?
No, I think in some cases they are coming. For example, in the solar panels now, because the government, especially in the country like Australia, which I am in, so because we have a lot of solar farms and a lot of solar panels is coming. For example, the companies, the government, putting some incentives, they put some money in that to find a solution. For the water also, the countries that they have less water resources, now they're putting this legislation and these barriers. But some of the countries, no, because they don't see the need for that, and they haven't realized that the water is the precious, and they have to protect that.
And you make a very good point in a lot of your articles that you talk about, where you refer to the point that, you know, we are on a land or maybe on a farm, and we don't really understand, you know, what needs to be done to preserve our resources so that we have clean water, we have the proper food. And I think that's a problem. A lot of people, I guess, they just take it for granted. And even at lots of cost, people don't realize that, you know, it's very similar to drilling oil, right? When there's no more oil to be drilled, well, what do? No amount of money in the world could get any more oil back.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So that's a good point that you mentioned. I always refer to that. So imagine that we are living in a farm and we have to produce our food, and we have to live there for 6 months. And there is no connection between us and outside that farm. And we have to produce our food, we have to have the resources, we have to use the water is there. So what we are doing, if, for example, we are supposed to live into that farm for 6 months and survive there, are we going to take care of that farm? Are we going to take care of the trees inside that, the food that produce on land? Or we are going to damage it in the first 1 month, chop all the trees, burn them, and make the energy and destroy the water, and then the rest, we don't have anything. So if we realize that we are doing the same in this planet, so we have only this planet, there is no other way that, for example, we damage this and then we pack all suitcase and go to another planet. So we have the limited resources, we have just this in our hand. So, and if we damage this planet, so we basically damage ourselves, because our survivor is linked to the survivor of this planet. So if we realize that, then we are going to take care of the planet. We are going to understand and, for example, use whatever we can to damage this planet less. But the problem is we haven't realized that point yet. We think that whatever we do, the resources is unlimited. We have a lot of, for example, water, we have land, we have trees, and we can do whatever we want and produce those things that is comfortable for us.
I love the point you make, Dr. Farshid, where you say that, you know, we have to walk in nature. I always love taking my hour walk every day, but how many people actually take time out of their day to literally, like I say, unplug from technology? Being an engineer, I think it's important that we do unplug. And when I take that walk, I still have technology on me and I listen to music or meditations, but there's no phone calls coming in during that time. There's no me checking texts or checking emails. I'm just allowing the sounds and the meditations to just allow me to just be.
Yes. Yes.
So exactly. I think when we get to appreciate things, that's the only time when we start to respect nature, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. And that's the time that when we connect to the nature, when we realize that we are part of this planet, we are part of this nature. We realize that, for example, our food is coming from this land, and we should take care of it. So that's the point. When we go to the nature, is helping us to relax, is helping us to, for example, have for example, the better way of thinking. But at the same time, is we realize that we have to take care of this planet, because our survival is linking to the survival of this planet.
Fascinating. I wish more people would, take time, not just for the environment, but also for themselves. When you take that time out to take a walk, I always say the creative juices in your mind start to flow, because, you're not looking at the board. As we've been taught many times in school, when we can't solve something, walk away from the problem and forget about it. Then come back to it. And the problem just sort of seems different. And, oh, why didn't I think about that before? But with all this coming up, Doctor, is it really possible to restore our economy and remove waste, or is that a fallacy?
No, it's possible. For example, the reason I always like to mention that is the people, and for example, those people are in the manufacturing or in the businesses. They think that the economy and making the money is opposite to take care of the environment and having less waste. And that's why we are not taking care of an environment. That's why we are not moving toward the sustainability, because we are economically driven. We want to make the profit. But I believe that these two is actually can go hands in hand. One of the example, for example, you're manufacturing a product. You're manufacturing, for example, a computer, or manufacturing a plastic, very simple plastic container. So there are two scenarios in that. One, you go and buy the virgin material from for example, mining the product, make the product, buy the virgin material and produce that product. And another scenario is that you have in your surrounding, there is a lot of waste plastic, for example. If you can take those waste plastic and convert them to your product, then in the second scenario, that you're taking the waste from surrounding area, you cut for example, transportation, you cut the cost for paying the money for buying the product. You even for example, those waste company, they pay you to take their waste.
Okay.
So,
all right. So it makes sense.
And now, yeah, you are trying, for example, that product, that material, you are recycling to the new product. So not only you are helping the environment, but also you are making more money. So we can have both economically driven, we can have the economy, and we can have the sustainability. The only thing is, we look at the waste differently. We don't think, for example, if we want to take that material, it costs us a lot, but we can buy this cheaper. There is new way that instead of the traditional way, which you can make the money, and also you can have the sustainable product or sustainability, and you can have better environment impact.
Let's take a look at the dry cleaning industry. Okay, they use a chemical called perchlorethylene, or they used to for many, many years. It's now illegal to use that product or to have any machines that have that product. There's a new green product, I believe, that they've replaced it with. And supposedly that's going to make our environment better. The only challenge has been it doesn't really clean the clothes as well.
Oh, okay.
That's been the challenge. But when you think about these types of things, and we talk about, the waste and what's in our world, do we have a percentage of, what's in our world from like petroleums or textiles? Is there a percentage of that? What is that waste percentage number roughly?
So there is a huge, for example, in different areas is a lot. So I don't have for example, for the plastic in the world or things. But for example, one thing in Australia for the textile, in every 10 seconds, we are sending for example, truck full of the textile to the landfill, and only we with the very small population. And that's the case for a lot of other places. So we have a lot of, for example, waste textile, we have a lot of waste plastics, a lot of electronic waste. So the number is huge. And that's why, for example, if you look at the different countries, one of the things now they're mentioning is that their landfill is filling up. So there is no other places that they can put all these waste inside.
Is this why so many towns like mine, Franklin Lakes, New Jersey, and other communities here in Bergen County and around the world have started to create a ban on plastic bags and plastic straws? Is this the reason? Is it getting into something about microplastics? And what really are microplastics? I know they can be harmful to our environment, right?
Yes. So it's basically, yeah, one of the reason is the amount of the waste, and the other one is, as you mentioned, is the microplastic and the environment side. So basically, for the microplastic, if you have a piece of the plastic that go to the environment, go to the landfill, and you don't recycle them, what is happening to them? They don't degrade to the base product, the base elements, but they become a smaller and a smaller particle. So when the particle size becomes so small, becomes the submicron size, then we call it as a microplastic. The reason is they can fly by the air, they can stay in the air because they are very tiny and small. We can breathe them in, the other animals and things, they can go to their body, we can eat them. And that's the main issue now from the health perspective. For example, a few months back, there was a research that coming out that mentioned that each of us per week, we eat equivalent to 1 credit card of the plastic. And imagine that those plastic, we cannot digest them. It's either stay in the system or cause the damage to us. So that's a very serious issue, and I'm sure that not all of the people know about that. And the good thing is now they are start to banning this plastic, the straw, the shopping bag plastic and things. That's a good point to start to reducing the amount of the plastic. But at the same time, we have to think about the recycling the material, whatever other plastic we have. If we don't recycle them and we send them to the landfill, we produce a lot of microplastic and a lot of pollution.
So it's almost like, these plastics and these different waste materials in our world, we have to do something with them, right? We have to burn them. We have to hopefully see that they'll be a part of a micro or a biodegradable composite, if that's possible. Not everything does have that ability. I know some food now that the food is obviously biodegradable, but the bags are actually biodegradable after they're in the sun for so many hours. So I think our planet's taking the right approach to that. What do you think?
Yes, yeah, I'm agree with you. And the good thing is now the awareness in the mind of the customer and the mind of the people is increasing. They know that there is a plastic issue, and because they know that there is an issue, then the manufacturer and the supplier, they are trying to change the way. They are going to the biodegradable or other source of the input material. So that's a good thing. Another thing that I think that slowly we are going toward that is to be aware that when we put the plastic or anything, because just we cannot eliminate the plastic totally, and we cannot, for example, for every component that we have, we cannot make them biodegradable. So still we will have the plastic in the system, but we have to change the concept that these plastic cannot be recycled and all of them should go to the landfill. There is a proven technology, and there are a lot of other way to recycle these polymers and keep them in the loop. So I think if we are going to a good direction, we need a little bit of the speed to speed up the things and to make sure that our effort is actually come to the good scale that we can protect our environment.
And motivate people to do this, because just the cost I know of doing a waste recovery plant. I think we're talking somewhere around $300 million. I mean, it's not inexpensive to build one of those. I was looking at the costs, and there's a lot involved with not just the permits and the plans, but you would never think $300 million to build a waste recovery plant, which is why a lot of counties and towns actually bring it to their neighbors. Or in our case, they bring it off to a landfill in Pennsylvania, which we know that can't be very good. This has been really educational, Dr. Farshid, but I just have two last questions. The one question I want to ask you is, you talk a lot about denim to paper, and I just want to understand that analogy. Can you give us a little quick rundown? Because I found that fascinating that you're always talking about that.
Yeah, so this is one of the, I try to basically showcase that the creative idea about the waste material. For example, one of the solution is that the denim can be transferred to the paper. And because the main component of those is the cotton. So cotton can easily be transformed to a paper, produce the product out of it. But the main concept behind that is that we look at the waste differently. If we just look at them as a textile or as, for example, a denim, then we see, okay, there is no solution to that. It's very tearing and we have to send to the landfill. But now if we look at them as a material, we realize that they are produced from the cotton fiber. And then we say, wow, the cotton fiber can be changed, for example, to the paper. And that's the beauty of these solutions, that we look at them differently and we see them as a resource instead of as a waste. And that's why I'm talking about that, or other solutions which I'm talking.
So it really is getting to the threads, no pun intended, of what is making the composite, in this case, cotton, which actually is very logical because it is the fibers of those two components. If we were talking about plastic and something else, they might have a very similar analogy. Maybe it's not cotton, it's something else. But I guess you have to look at what the micro components are to these different items and then see, how do you, I guess, dispose of those? You can't look at the whole item from what I'm understanding from you. You have to look at what brings the item together.
Yes,
is that correct?
Exactly. Yes.
This has been really fascinating.
Yes, that's the whole idea. Because when those components come together, they produce a product. And that product, when it's reached to the end of the life, then there is no way to look at them as a product because it's done its purpose. Now we have to look deeper and see that that product made of what material, what component, and each of those material and component, what we can do with them and how we can basically recycle them.
Is there a day in the United States or around the world for something that makes people mindful of how to recycle other than just general recycling? Is there some kind of day for this?
There is a, for example, they put some as a planet day or other things that, for example, the people encourage the people to think more about that.
But I don't think it really gets to the heart of the matter. I mean, it gets them to get the cursory view, but it doesn't get them to dive deep like we're doing here.
Yes,
I think there needs to be another day, more like component biodegradation day or waste management day. Understanding, do you really know what's in the stuff you're producing and how are you getting rid of it? So I guess the moral of the story here, Dr. Farshid, is that you have to hire a company, basically. If you don't know what these things are that you're producing, you've got to hire a consultant to basically help you. And I'm assuming that's what you do, to say, look, this is what you're producing. You're producing metal, but you're putting a lot of carbon dioxide, other gases into the air because of what you're doing. And now when you make this product, you're producing this. And that's why I guess a lot of these companies now, I have started to understand this, they put these silos out there and they try to cap, I guess, their waste expenditure so they could just I guess, mitigate a little bit. They can't eliminate 100%, but I guess if we all could control our waste, we could really make a big difference on the planet, couldn't we?
Yes, exactly. And we can reduce a lot of, for example, emission of that. We can reduce we can help the sustainability of the planet. But at the same time, the companies can get benefit. They can make money out of these processes. So that's why I'm coming from. I'm helping the companies to realize that by these actions, they can make money. They can actually produce the profit regardless of the sustainability is a benefit, it's basically the green product that produce. In the same process that they're doing, they can actually make money.
And that's got to open up a lot of people's eyes. But the other thing I want to share with people is that if you don't take the initiative to mitigate your waste, I'm sure there's going to be some hefty fines by some different federal associations and government associations that will say, hey, you know, you're above this limit. We're either shutting you down or we're charging you a $3,000 fee per day or something like that, or maybe worse.
Yeah, that's coming for it's not good enough at this moment, but there is, for example, like the carbon tax that, for example, they put the carbon tax, and if you produce this much of the more carbon dioxide, then you have to pay money. For the waste, unfortunately, there is no kind of that fine or tax in that. But some countries, like, for example, Australia, they are increasing the price that you have to pay to send the waste to landfill. So it's actually the company, they have to pay money for their waste to be disposed. And they are increasing it every year. So because of that, the companies like to reuse their waste, because even if they don't send them to the landfill and they reuse it, that's a huge amount of the money they will save.
Is there a formula, Dr. Farshid, that people should be following? Like, is it 10% has to go to landfill and 80% should be destroyed in house? Is there some type of a general formula we can give our viewers, or not really?
I like to say that 100% of your waste shouldn't go to the landfill, and you can reuse them or you can treat them. But there is not a straightforward that, for example, this number depend on the process, depend on the manufacturing, and depend on the type of the waste. There is always variation.
What waste, Dr. Farshid, can we not actually, let's say, put through a process of biodegradation or something like that? What are the wastes that basically we can't? I mean, obviously, I know like some of the chemicals, they're always landfill, like, you know, like a safety clean or things like that from a dry clean plant or a chemical plant. We can't really do too much with them. Dry cleaning, we can actually burn or boil them out and then make it clean, but it's still, you still have a little bit of sludge, and that still winds up going to landfill. What else can we not really recycle that has to go into the landfill, unfortunately?
At this moment, I can say that those complex products, for example, if you have a few type of the plastic, they are embedded together, or even some of the textiles, for example, the textiles, because they have the natural fiber, polymeric fiber, they are embedded together, and to separate is very difficult. But in each of these cases, except the chemicals, in each of these cases, for example, if you have combination of some polymer together or textile, we are introducing a term as a reforming instead of recycling. And reforming means that you don't need to separate them, and you can reform them to a new product instead.
So it's like almost repurposing it. So like you said, you took the fibers from the jeans and you made paper. And maybe something that had been a battery might take the copper, the zinc, and that could be used for something else, either a new battery plate or maybe made in some kind of component for metal for a car or for a dash or a motor or something else. So there's lots of, I guess, ways that we can do what they did many years ago, which is the man of the interchangeable parts.
Yes.
And I think now it's changing because it's not being interchangeable as it is currently, but it's how it's transformed. So it's almost the waste management and the rebuilding of parts that become interchangeable in a way that really were never possible because of the manner, the form they were in. It's almost like you have a gas, a liquid, and a solid, and you can change them in certain states, but there's sometimes you can't because of the environment or other conditions. And that's what this reminds me of, is that you're not able to always change that. Like, let's take some of the COVID vaccines right now. If you take some of them and you bring them down in temperature, well, then the product basically transforms into something that could be fatal or something that could be totally useless, because now the polymers and all of the different components and the chemical ions putting things together are not creating those same clouds. They're breaking apart.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yes, yes.
This is really fascinating. I hope a lot of you will take more time to research this, because if you have a company or you're a citizen, you're living in the world anywhere, I believe it's our duty to take care of our country. Just like we need to preserve our ozone layer, we need to preserve ourselves. We need to take care of our country and our world, because if we don't take care of it, no one else will. This has been fascinating. Dr. Farshid, is there some way or information that you'd like to leave with our viewers if they'd like to reach out for you, if they have more questions? Would you like to share any details or any last words for our viewers?
Yes, so if anybody wants to reach out, I'm in the LinkedIn and I'm active there, so they can reach out there and we can talk more about that. And just one last thing for everybody that's viewing here. I always say this to everybody, that for next time, if you want to if you want to throw something into the bin, just pause for 1 second or 2 seconds and look at that and ask this question of yourself, that is there any other way that I can reuse that or I can recycle that instead of throwing to the bin? And that's the question that we have to ask ourselves every day.
Almost like when we shred paper. We shred it, but then is there another purpose for that? We've taken it from now being this large pail of waste into just some fine micro deposits that are probably going to be a lot cheaper to dispose of and a lot easier too.
Yes, and a lot of easier to recycle them as well.
A lot easier to recycle. So like Dr. Farshid said, when you're going to throw something out, just take a breath, maybe count to 5 and take a nice big deep breath and think about where that's going to go. And is there something else maybe you can use to possibly repurpose it now or in the future? Again, this has been really remarkable, and we really do appreciate your time here on the Jay Moore Tech Talk Show. We've learned so much. I know I've learned a lot. I've always been into recycling, but I've learned so much more in the time that we've had. And again, I want to thank you for coming on our show.
No, thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
It is our pleasure. Wow. What did you think about Dr. Pavlani? I mean, that's an interesting conversation about waste, which we usually don't have, but knowing that we can actually take a concerted effort to be able to manage our waste to turn it into something else kind of blew my mind.
We need to have more conversations like this because we are totally are like missing out on the opportunities. Like what happens is like exactly what he describes. It's like when we get rid of this stuff and we go through and recycle it, nothing happens. You know, there's zero return afterwards. So we ought to make something out of it and put it back into the economy so we can make some money.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if people just understand, even when we're talking about these big stores that we know online, one of them starts with an A, and you know what I mean. For
Yeah.
whatever reason, they actually include a higher price tag, and that's because they know that things are going to be returned. And a lot of things that are returned, they never get sent back to the manufacturer. Did you know that?
I did not know that. So that's new news for me. So wow.
Yes. That is very, very new news, right?
Yeah.
It is very, very new news. So speaking about, recycling and other things in the world, solar is making a very, very big breakthrough. I mean, we haven't heard a lot in solar in a while, but there is a solar cell breakthrough that recently came to our eyes. And researchers are observing a singlet fission reaction at a nanosecond time scale. So this is going to greatly affect the efficiency of solar cells, and it can increase by taking the process known as singlet fission and allowing that to cause even more of a reaction, which we were never to do until now. And that was a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
And this research group now is led by lots of scientists, and also the Linköping University and Sweden has discovered what happens during singlet fission and where the lost energy goes. And the results have been published now. And it's been amazing because now that we understand where it goes, we can actually harness it so that it's not dissipated and we can use it.
This is great. I think this is great, real great news. Sometimes I get lost when I hear the word physics, and then when I see the word chemistry. But when it's explained and what uh, this new news brings in store for us, what we know is that we're gonna have something that's cheap to manufacture and something that's going to be what's already existing in our technology.
Absolutely. So this is definitely not only a breakthrough, but a revolution that I think is going to save a lot of homeowners and businesses money. Very happy to hear that.
Yeah, I know he will. So, yeah.
There's not a lot of experts like him that really understand our world and how to preserve what we have, those resources. People say, gee, conserve electricity, save water, turn off the lights when you're not using them. But that's not really doing anything major. I mean, that's stuff we've been doing for eons.
Yeah.
Now, our friends at Instagram are going to be rolling out, which is owned by Facebook, as you guys all know, to 170 countries plus Instagram Lite. So this is going to be a more slimmed down version of Instagram, and it's going to allow people to use it at these other countries without needing as much bandwidth. And the Facebook team has been working for a long time to put together an app in Instagram that allows people to communicate while not being, let's say, scrutinized by the regulators. And they believe that this is going to make everyone happy, which that's never an easy thing to do when you have regulation.
No, it's not. I it's definitely going to help those who are abroad be able to participate in the social networking fund. So I think it's a win on that end, and it's a win. Ultimately, then it becomes a win for Facebook.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And if we get more countries on board, I think that's going to be fantastic. Well, our last story this evening, I don't know where the night goes. It's a leap, and it's really a big one, to get behind the scenes of battery research and use artificial intelligence to make a battery last longer and have more efficiency. So researchers are now using scientific methods along with artificial intelligence to take this gigantic step and using this machine learning to redesign batteries from the way we've known them today. So they're going to study basically how they're charged, how they're discharged, the life of the battery. And this new study is going to make batteries different than the way we thought. I mean, you've heard about batteries that say they're supercharged. Well, this is going to go way beyond that. And I want to make a quote here. Battery technology is important for any type of electric powertrain, said Patrick Heron. Now, senior research scientists from Toyota Research Institute, and I quote, by understanding the fundamental reactions that occur within the battery, we can extend its life, enable faster charging, and ultimately design better battery materials. So I think that's another thing that Mr. Pavlani would like, because, batteries are a resource that gets wasted in our environment because, when they're done, they're done. But if we could make something that is consumable, lasts longer and more efficient, well, I think that would probably, be top on his charts.
Yeah, talking about a lot of waste that can be just reduced. It's totally a huge problem. And batteries, as you know, when you're running dead on them, and with the way the future's pointing towards right now, we have to have better battery technology.
I agree, and it's not just the nickel cadmium battery or the other rechargeable batteries. We're off the alkaline batteries, but we need batteries that are better. And if they're batteries that are going into our cars, well, they got to be more efficient. And when you and I think of batteries, we probably think about the batteries that are in our cell phones, maybe the batteries that are powering some Internet of Thing device, or maybe we're thinking about batteries that just go into a flashlight. But there's a whole other world with batteries, which are things that drive powertrains, like he said. That could be your cars. That can be your wheelchairs.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that this is going to help. Maybe that gives somebody who's disabled an extra few hours, or maybe a day or a half a day in that wheelchair.
Yeah, and just thinking about the threat of if there's ever a major power outage, and you want something that's going to last long until the power's back up and running again.
I went to the store, Marcus, a few months ago because we were having some power outages with the storms coming, and I bought one of those LED lights.
Yeah.
And I got it, and I have to tell you, it was already charged when I got it. And you turn it on, don't ever look at it directly in your eye, it'll blind you.
Yeah.
And you put that on, and that's all you really need.
Yeah.
And the one thing I got to tell you about that light is that battery really holds a charge. I bought it 4 months ago. It's still charged.
That's great.
So I think we're already getting better in the manufacturing process of batteries and flashlights. We look at where we've come from a bulb to now having an LED bulb. But I have to make one caveat here, and that is that LED bulbs are very good for the environment, and I don't disagree about that. One thing I want to point out to you is many years ago, and I'm always extremely healthy, I had moved into my new place and they didn't put LED bulbs in. So my friend was telling me, John, you should change the bulbs. They're going to save you so much money. First of all, they're not going to save me that much money. But I went out and bought all these bulbs for my home. And I was so happy. I was changing them, going through the process. Some of them I had to go through extra work because you had to change some things. You couldn't just change the bulb. So I spent a good couple hours changing all these bulbs. And I was so ecstatic with doing this. Yeah. And then I decided to turn them on. And then after I did that for a while, I wanted to get something to eat. So I ate. And after that, I started getting tired. And after I ate, I started to become nauseous. And I didn't really know what was going on because I was feeling fine moments ago.
Yeah.
And I said to myself, well, what changed between now and before? Well, I turned the lights on. And I was under the lights for a few minutes. And I said, this is crazy. I got to just turn all the lights out and just lie down. And I was fine. I brought the bulbs back the next morning to the store. And they said, excuse me, sir, there's no refunds. Assuming there's no refunds. Well, we don't allow refunds on those items. Well, there's an issue with them. Yeah, I'm sorry. Did you see the sign, no refunds? I said, well, I don't want to return them because I don't like them. I want to return them because they got me sick. Excuse me? Well, I put the bulbs in. Oh, hold on. Let me get you someone else and we'll help you with that one. It's like, you know what that means, right? Yeah. They get me someone else. How can we help you? Well, there's no refunds on the bulbs. I understand there's no refunds traditionally. He says, no, there's no refunds on the bulbs ever. Well, let me ask you a question, sir. If I bought the bulbs and I took them home, he said, you did, and there's no refunds. I said, I understand that you want to tell me about the no refunds, but can you just let me speak for just a minute? I think you're going to want to hear what I have to say. Okay, but there's no refunds. I'm not giving you a refund. I understand, sir. Please just hear me out. I'm very well. Okay. I went and bought these bulbs the other day and I opened the packaging and I put them in. And he said, there's no refunds. I said, yeah, I understand there's no refunds. Just please listen to me. Yeah. I put them in. I had dinner. The lights were on about 5 or 10 minutes. He's looking at me. And I started to become nauseous. And so I was feeling fine before that. So all I did was turn off the lights and lie down. I took the bulbs out, put the regular bulbs back in. I was feeling fine. It turns out certain colors of LED actually have an annoyance to the human nervous system in the body. Mm. And the white you were selling me was not the right white. This is a very aggravating white to the body. So he's not saying much. And I said, I know there's normally no refunds. I get it. This is a health issue. Maybe I should bring this up to the FDA and also the company that manufactures these and Consumer Protection Agency in my state and let them know how these bulbs have affected me and maybe even contact some of the local media because I would never want someone to go through what I went through. He looks at me for a few moments. He goes, how many bulbs did you buy? I said, my whole carriage is filled with them. He's like, how many? I said, I think about 65. He's looking at me. Hold on a minute. I'll be right back. He comes back and he has this roll and they say defective on it. He says, well, we don't issue refunds. He says, but what I can do is I can mark these all defective. And for that, I can give you a refund. So my point is that sometimes when technology first comes out, There's some bugs in it. There may even be some annoyances to the human body that we're not aware of yet. And that's why when LED first came out, I didn't rush to buy it. This was years later. But this store had a sale on these LED bulbs. I know why they had a sale on those bulbs, because nobody wants them.
Yeah.
So technologies continue to shape our world as we grow and we progress. We just need to be conscientious of the things we incorporate into our environments.
That's true.
And so I hope you've enjoyed tonight's episode, which is where we've talked a lot about sustainability, the future of different power cells that we even can wear on our bodies. And I think it's going to be pretty amazing, all the stuff that's basically going to be coming up the pipe. Because, when you think about where we were, Marcus, many years ago, there was no thought of somebody wearing a power cell.
Oh, no, not at all.
I mean, maybe in the movies, right?
Yeah, only in the movies.
just on Iron Man.
Okay.
And his power cell was probably very heavy.
Much more heavier than the one we were looking at just now.
Exactly. So I think that's really going to, change basically, where we are with things. But I know we're going to escalate, but you have to realize whenever they make something, it always costs more money when they make the first one. It's just pretty much how they are. And then they gradually, go down in price as they have a mass production. Next week, we have a real treat, ladies and gentlemen. We have a gentleman coming to us internationally, all the way from China. This gentleman's name is Francis Cramer. A quick little synopsis on him. He actually grew up in Germany. And he worked in China in sales. And I don't know if you know this, but sales is basically the lowest level you can have in China. It's like an insult to be in sales in China. It's very low level and not respected. He retired and he went back to Germany, where he lived. And then he actually decided to come back to China and get his dream job as a manager. So we're going to learn all about his story. I can't wait to talk to him. But it's very interesting to get people's perspectives when they're from different parts of the country and different parts of the world. So before we end tonight, I want to just thank you all for joining us. I also want to officially thank our new network that is coming on board, Princeton TV. I want to thank them for now carrying our show and going out to all the students in the area and many people in the Princeton and that particular area, because, we're all about helping people and educating. And if you have an idea, ladies and gentlemen, for a particular show, if you'd like to be a guest on our show, please reach out to jmor.com. In the upper right-hand panel of the website, click on Reach Out to Us. Then on the web form, contact us. Let us know what it is you'd like us to talk about. If you'd like to be a guest, more than happy to talk with you. But remember, we're all about value. So if your intent is to come on the show to sell some widgets and think you're going to make a killing, that's not what we're about here. We're about trying to share things so we can actually pay it forward to other people and help them get educated, because that's what we're all here for in this world, to pass and share knowledge. If you have a product and you'd like me to unbox that, feel free to reach out to me. Recently, we unboxed the Friendship Lamp, a unique lamp that actually allows you to communicate with other people in your friendship circle and send emotions to them by tapping the light in different ways. Although that's a fad, I think it's pretty neat, Marcus.
Yeah, I think that's pretty neat too.
It's not a cheap little gadget, I'll warn you. One light is under $100.
Wow.
So we may talk about that later on. So again, please, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for us, reach out to us. Please tell your friends, your family, your colleagues about our show. We've got so much great information to share with you. And I know that you're going to be extremely pleased with what's coming up, because not only do we have Mr. Francis Cramer, I am so very blessed to have another guest, but this guest is pretty amazing. He is actually an engineer, and he is the first person, ladies and gentlemen, to talk on a cell phone. Tell me that's not amazing.
That's beyond amazing, and I'm looking forward to that interview. That interview's going to be great.
That's going to be an amazing interview, and he's going to share with us the technology advances, as well as what was it like, I'm sure, to talk on a cell phone. I can't wait to ask him. I want to know who he called. That's what I want to know. I'm going to ask him who he called, why he called them, and what did it feel like to talk on a cell phone? The first time, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't a cell phone like this, I'm sure, Marcus. I'm sure
no.
It was something that weighed several pounds.
Yeah.
So before I say goodnight to everyone, I'm going to wish you all a very happy, a very healthy, a very safe rest of your weekend. Remember to practice social distancing. If you do feel comfortable getting yourself vaccinated, you do the research. Of course, that would help. And remember that if you are traveling now, ladies and gentlemen, on many major airlines, it's not just a request, but it is a requirement to either have a COVID test within, I believe it's 24 to 48 hours of your flight and the results, or a card showing that you were recently vaccinated. Well, I wish you guys a great weekend, and I'm going to see you guys and Marcus, and we'll have Martin Cooper on next Friday. Again, it's 5:30. If you miss any of these, of course, you can go back to our site and play them at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning, because we have a lot of nuggets on these shows, don't we, Marcus?
Yeah, indeed we do.
And they're all fat-free, so your dietitian won't care what time you decide to digest these, because I promise you they'll put no calories on your body. So have yourself a wonderful weekend, everyone, and I will see you right back here on the Jay Moore Tech Talk Show on March 19th, next Friday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great one, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the Jay Moore Weekly Technology Show, where we answer your questions about how technology is supposed to work, and sometimes why you have challenges getting it to work that way. For more IT support and tips, just text IT support to 888-111. That's IT support to 888-111, and you'll get tips on technology. I'll see you next week.